The Amy House is a still-existent pioneer fort in Rogersville, Tennessee. It's listed on the National Registry of Historic Places as one of the oldest buildings in Hawkins County. It served as inn and tavern for travelers along the old Stagecoach Road. Descendant Wendy Jacobs and husband Jake have restored the house to its original splendor and opened it as Thomas Amy Inn.
Historians figure that Thomas Amy came into Hawkins County in 1781, and he loved the land so much, and he found a mysterious spring he called the Sinking Spring. That was the name the Indians called it. And it was near the mouth of the Big Creek. It was on Big Creek near the mouth of the river, where Big Creek poured into the Holston River. And they had built a fort there. It was called the Amy community at that time. And Thomas Amy built a complex. It was a stone home, and it was had a palisade around it to protect against Indian raids. The complex originally consisted of there was a slave quarters, there was a tavern for receiving the guests, as this was the Great Wilderness Road, and many guests stayed here at that time. And there was a blacksmith shop and a distillery for the spirits. He was very popular for that, and he got caught a lot of static for that in those days. And when there was when there was Indian hostilities, people in the community would come inside the fort, and so there were cabins set up for that. Pennsylvania's stonemason Thomas Harlan designed the Amy House for Thomas Amy in 1780 to 1781. The walls were like 24 inches thick, 18 to 24 inches thick, and the doors is typical French Huguenot design. They're all having the same ironwork that it did when it was built. One distinct feature of the Amy House is each room had an enclosed staircase leading up to the bedroom above.
A community quickly grew up around the home, including a grits mill, distillery, and blacksmith shop. A trading post doubled as post office and a school that was used as a church on Sundays. In 1774, Shawnee Indians attacked the settlement. Settlers ran to the safety of the fort. A few Native Americans were killed in the conflict and were buried nearby.
They built a palisade around the stone fort here. There were many Indian attacks at first, and Miss Ann Amy, that was one of the last living descendants to live in the Amy House, said that there were Indian graves out in the field in front of the house that were killed during the Indian raids. So, Miss Ann Amy was quite a character. She lived in the house, and as a little girl she remembered seeing the Confederate soldiers' fires up on the bluff near the Battle of Big Creek. The Amy House is.
The tavern was visited by numerous illustrious guests, including John Sevier, Daniel Boone, future President Andrew Jackson, French botanist André Michaud, and Methodist Bishop Francis Asbury. In 1784, Alice passed away, leaving him with 11 children. In 1787, he married Lucy Haynes, daughter of Francis and Anna Haynes. The couple had 4 children. In 1785, daughter Mary Amy fell in love with Irish-born entrepreneur Joseph Rogers, who was working as a clerk at her father's trading post. Local legend recounts that the day before he was hired, Mary drank from Ebb and Flowing Spring, a tidal spring that reportedly has mystical amorous properties. It's said that anyone who drinks the water will meet their true love soon. Thomas did not approve of the union, but respected his daughter's wishes, and the two were married the next year.
So when Joseph Rogers went to ask him about marrying Mary, he said, "No way, you can't marry her." So they waited until Thomas Amy was off on a trip, and Mary and Joseph they eloped and got married. And it was a volatile relationship between Thomas Amy and Joseph Rogers from the start. At one time, just after Mary and Joseph had married and moved down to the Rogers Tavern, which later became Rogersville, that he sent one of his servants down to tell Joseph Rogers to come up to the Amy property. And Joseph was working at the time, so he didn't come. And Thomas Amy mounted his horse and rode down all the way to Rogersville, about 3 or 4 miles, and called Joseph Rogers and hit him across the face with his riding crop and said, "Now, mister, the next time I send for you, you'll come."
In 1787, Thomas petitioned North Carolina General Assembly to create Hawkins County, named after Senator Benjamin Hawkins, and represented the area in 1788 and 1789 in provincial Congress. Joseph used his father-in-law's influence to move the county seat to his tavern and named the city after himself. Additions were added to the Amy House in 1840 by Thomas's son, John Amy. Aunt Amy lived in the home most of her life. In later years, she recalled wonderful times there and regaled visitors with Amy family stories. She remembered seeing soldiers setting up camp on the bluff overlooking the home during the Civil War.